Harsh crackdowns on peaceful protests in Myanmar, Russia, and other places around the world tested the Biden administration's promise to make human rights a cornerstone of American foreign policy.
President Biden is committed to putting human rights back at the center of American foreign policy. And that's a commitment that I and the entire Department of State take very seriously.
Some human rights experts say President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken have struck a markedly different tone on human rights compared to the Trump administration, citing what they say is sharper criticism of China's treatment of its ethnic Uyghur minority.
The Biden administration has made this unequivocally clear that the Chinese government's treatments of the Uyghurs is egregious and that the U.S. government will not turn a blind eye. So that is about as radical a departure on China human rights as we've seen. I think under the prior administration, there was not nearly enough attention given to human rights abuses, whether it's in the Xinjiang region or in Hong Kong.
Other experts also note the administration's global focus on human rights.
We saw sanctions on the International Criminal Court lifted. We saw the global gag rule for women's rights lifted. We've seen a lot of support for LGBT people around the world, support for civil society, and certainly human rights has been mentioned quite often, especially by Secretary of State Tony Blinken.
But citing the Middle East, Holewinski and other experts say there is still room for improvement.
There have also been some missteps. So things that are very practical and not just statements include arms sales to United Arab Emirates and to Egypt, two known rights abusing nations. So we still have a long way to go.
Experts say while a shift in tone is important, the real challenge will be how the Biden administration attempts to make nations like Russia or China pay for human rights abuses.
Having Secretary of State Tony Blinken say that what's happening to the Uyghurs in China is a genocide is one thing. Trying to impose a cost on China for those actions while also trying to get cooperation from China on climate and the pandemic and other issues is another matter.
With the COVID-19 death toll surging in India and other nations, human rights experts say providing critical help is another major rights issue. They are calling on the U.S. and other richer nations to waive intellectual property rights to allow greater access to life-saving vaccines. Cindy Sain, VOA News.